record.
Yes, hello, hello, hello.
Right, ready?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk number 292. We're back again. Sorry about the last week's delay, the lack of live show. It's the interview with Jordan just came up, and it seemed like a good Sonic Talk, and I just suddenly thought, you know what, I've got so much to do just to sort out little tweaks and niggles and things with the new site design. I figured it was probably best to get that stuff going rather than do the show. So I hope nobody was put out, and I'm sorry if anybody got up early for that. So. Or, you know, rushed about. But anyway, we're back once again. Sonic Talk number 292. Of course, I'm Nick Batt, editor of Sonic State. We're live, in case you've ever wondered what that means. SonicState.com/live. Bit harder to find on the new site. I've got to get a kind of timed poster frame, you know, to go in all the carousels. I'm going to sort out that. That's one thing that I haven't got done yet. But I do have a couple of guests with me. I'll switch to them as a sort of a two-shot. There we go. We'll start with... I think we'll start with Mark there. Mark over there, over in the east of the country. Give your lower third there, likebeing.com. I thought, in fact, you wanted it to be Neo Waltz, didn't you? Because I did check out some of your brother's music.
He's doing another show in Hoxton next week, I think, on Tuesday night. Definitely worth going to.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I don't suppose you could tilt your laptop forward a bit just so that your head's slightly nearer the top of the screen. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Anyway, Mark, thank you for joining us. Anyway, that was I'm glad you're here. I was getting a little bit nervous there. I know me and Gaz could obviously just about hold it together. Obviously, we've had practice with Sonic Touch. We can talk for minutes on a variety of nonsense. We'd be probably. I wonder if we could go on Just a Minute, that BBC program where you have to talk. Although it would mean without repetition or deviation, that'd be tricky, wouldn't it? Not so easy. Anyway, Gaz Williams right there. Your lower third. No, that's not you, is it? This is you. Gaz Goldstar. In fact, it's songsurgeon.co.uk again, isn't it? Because you've got the site back up again.
Yes. Although, not impressed with it though.
It looks good. I didn't have a problem with it. Maybe it's your internet connection, mate.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it might be. Anyway, Let's get on. We've got a few things to cover this week. So we'll start with a little bit of this, assuming it works. This is obviously it's not new, but funnily enough, Rich Hilton posted this, and it's obviously only just come into public consciousness. The new
we knew that what we wanted to do was enable the musician, who is not necessarily a skilled live sound person, the ability to get great live mixes any place they played. We knew this was going to require some thought. It was going to require a new way of interacting between the musician and the mixer. The mixer would basically have to become smart. It would have to have a ton of DSP in the box to be flexible and powerful. It'd have to be all metal, so you didn't have to worry about it falling apart. It'd have to sound great. It'd have to be able to record. It'd have to be able to help you with a sound check. All sorts of stuff.
Yeah, all those things. So that's the Line 6 M20D, which actually I did review, so I can talk with some authority on this. I know, Gaz, you were quite sort of thrilled at the idea of this, the Line 6 M20D. I mean, first of all, though, I mean, it really is just a completely different paradigm for mixing, right? What is it that thrills you about that?
I think that, partly. But I think that, I think it's very brave of them to do this and to put out a product that really is as you say, a new paradigm. But I think it really ties in with lots of things that I'm really into, which is this idea of making things appeal to the left brain rather than the right brain. And so they've gone to great sort of design. I mean, the extent of the design on that is very, very interesting because it really is all about that kind of thought process. The traditional mixing desk uses lots of sort of left brain, and it does get very confusing. So to be able to try and work out a workflow which is all based around the right brain, I think is amazing. I think for me, that's hugely important, and I want to see that in a recording situation. But that desk, I want to try it out because you can just record straight. You can capture every single channel onto an SD card that's built into it as well. So
yeah,
in terms
or a USB port. Yeah.
or a USB port, yeah. But I think just the fact that with the card in there, that it is a standalone recorder that is very, very, very simple. The only thing that would just stop me getting one, to be absolutely honest, is that the recording side of things isn't quite fully featured enough, and also I just don't know what the preamps are like. So that's what I'd like to find out.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about this. The recorder. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by the recording features.
Well, I mean, I'd like 96K for a start, I think.
Right.
I think it's limited to. It does do 24-bit though, does it?
That is a very good question. I'm afraid I don't have the answer to that. I would imagine it's probably 24-bit, but yeah.
Turbo Mega Brain.
Yeah, the chat room may know. That's terrible. I haven't reviewed it. I wasn't really kind of thinking about it from a recording specifications point of view, but.
But can I just say a few more things? Why I would be why something like that is very appealing. Partly because I've got various kind of things that I do in my work. Like for instance, I sometimes do workshops with kids, and that kind of simplicity I think would be very appealing with children, because they would all completely understand it as well, because they don't have the legacy of the old way of doing it. So I think that's quite appealing. And it's colourful, hooray!
It's pretty. Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I did think there's things it's got in its favour. It sounds good, and it's got quite a lot of processing on board, so it can. And it is simple to use to a degree. Though the problem that I have with it is that it's still, it's assuming you've never even seen a mixing desk before and you don't have any kind of idea about how to use one. And therefore no preconceived ideas or routines, it's great. But if you have, and you're talking live sound, there are certain things on it that really needed to be addressed. Like quick switching of muting, those sort of things were things that kind of I had problematic. Everything was a heartbeat further away instinctively than I'm used to. For live sound, I think that's fairly critical. So I couldn't quite get my head around the fact that there's this fantastically complicated piece of equipment that's got all these memories and recall and stuff. Yeah. But they've set it up so that you set it and forget it. So it just sort of feels a bit at odds with itself from that point of view.
Part of the marketing, it's saying it's more for like musicians to kind of get their own sound and go on stage and play it, as opposed to the sound guy operating the desk. And I think that's a big difference really that you have to bear in mind with it. And it's kind of designed in such a way that you can just reach over and just make a very quick adjustment without being particularly confused. I think but you've used it and I've not, so I'm really keen to know.
Well, I mean, I think the danger with all of this stuff is, when you're completely sweeping away the paradigm and trying something completely new, then what do? Do you include the legacy of sort of all of those years of use and knowledge and setup, or do you start from scratch? And that's the trick. That's tricky. I think they've perhaps gone a little bit too far. I don't know, Mark. What do you think? Is this the sort of thing that appeals to you?
No, because I'm a sound engineer, and then that would completely take my job out of the loop, wouldn't it?
Well, it doesn't take it out of the loop.
Because I'm a sound engineer, and it's brilliant, and its execution and what it does, it's brilliant. So, does it appeal to me? It appeals to if I could rewind 30 years and be in a band and have somebody on the front of a house, and you're sort of like going, what does it sound like, and you don't quite trust them. There's something about the idea that you can connect, as far as I could make out, you can connect as many iPads to it as you want, right?
I think so. Unfortunately, I didn't have the wireless dongle, so I couldn't test it.
You could do a sound check. You could record a song. Every member of the band could walk out into the audience and wander around the audience with their iPad and tweak their part in context with everyone else's parts, and then everybody could sort of stand and go, "Hey, well, this is what we really sound like."
Chaos.
Yeah, well, it could be chaos, but they're going to have to work out a way of managing that. But
well, I mean, there are
one thing that bands want to know. They want to know what they sound like front of house.
I've got 2 points to make here, right?
Yeah.
This is not geared up for the sort of venue. It's geared up for the sort of smallish band who haven't got a front of house engineer, so they're not going to be playing a stadium. So basically, them walking out front when the place is empty and them not actually making a racket on stage is going to sound absolutely nothing like what they play like in a gig, because you're not going to get any of that stuff coming at you from the volume coming off the stage. So that's a bit of a fallacy. You know, it's that whole thing of like, well, the monitors sound crap.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so yes, a beautiful idea, and that really works from a kind of a DigiDesign venue point of view. When you're in a big stadium and just the band playing, that, you know, and you can fire the monitors up, but literally whether the guy's on drums, you know, 200 feet away or not is not going to make that much difference to the overall sound of the system. Whereas in the sort of venue this is likely to be used in, it's going to be a completely different picture when there's people in the place.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way,
Yeah.
part of their design, though, it actually includes a speaker system as well, and like that.
They've got these.
When you
That's kind of
factor that.
interesting. The StageSource stuff, but yes, and that's fine. But all I'm saying is, it seems to me that you know, it's not a cheap system. You know, it's a couple of thousand quid.
They need to sell a virtual crowd with it as well, then, don't they? Like a massive roll of human flesh that they can just roll out into the venue. And then you know they have to have variables, don't they? Have like wobbly parts for the drunk people, and then really
what they need is a
solid parts for the people that never dance.
They need the pub shuts button, don't they? So you press the button and it automatically pre-EQs the entire system to sound like it would do when the room is full of people, it's hot, and it blasts a load of really badly EQ'd and stuff into the monitors at the same time. So when you come back, you know, it kills the mics, but it throws all this lumpy audio out onto the stage and the front of house, and then so you can more or less hear what it's like.
And maybe they should go around and sample all the sort of mid-range venues, and I don't even know what they're called anymore. But you know, any venue that has more than 500 people in it in Britain, that's a regular venue, and America, of course. Sorry, and they go and do all the clubs and pubs, and then they have those in there as presets. So you set it up for that empty room, and then you press a button, and it changes, and it's perfect.
I imagine that might add to the R&D costs considerably, but yeah, you have a point. You have a point.
Well, maybe they make that a function so that bands can then, you know, I mean, you know, like they do with Guitar Port online, where people can kind of emulate the sound of, I don't know, the guitar sound from Killing Joke's Requiem. Somebody does that, and then they post that up, and then everyone else can download it and put it in their Line 6 Pod X, whatever the hell they are at now, X97 or whatever. They could do that with room EQs as well, couldn't they? They could have some kind of.
They could. There are no. I mean, the other thing that I have about this desk, the thing about a mixing desk of any medium cost is you've got all these routing possibilities. You can do clever stuff with things. So you can go, I need to do this right. If I route this back into itself or whatever, you know, you've got a load of different ways that you can configure it to solve most problems. The thing about the M20, it doesn't. Sorry, Gaz.
Well, yeah. But for me, the pros for the kind of bands that I'm in so outweigh any of the negatives by a massive degree.
I think so too.
And I'll give you an example now. I'm just imagining I had the whole rig. Line 6, if you're listening, send one over. I'll, you know. But if I had the whole rig and I turn up, a lot of the venues I turn up at, I don't like the PA systems in there. I often don't even like the PA guy that much if they're kind of one of these people who just kind of, you know, it's just an everyday.
I own this building. How dare you?
Yeah.
So
I've been there.
I love the idea of bringing your own monitor rig and using that as a monitor controller, you know, and then you can just kind of pretty much submix yourself and just give him front of house a stereo mix. You know, and then and you're all in charge of your monitor mix. Man, I tell you what, that would be mind-blowing, because that's when the musicians just kind of go to the magic zone. When everyone can hear each other and you're in that brilliant thing, you can get to the magic zone. But it's hard work when you're not at that level and you got your monitor mixer. I mean, I've done those gigs and it's amazing. But like a lot of the gigs you're doing, you just fight in a battle just to hear yourself, you know, just want to hear yourself. And, you know, to take that rig and one of those speakers each, okay, it's quite expensive, but like you just do your own thing.
Yeah, and you also don't have a really loud drummer or a guitarist that has to have his Marshall turned up to 10 to make sure he gets exactly the sound he wants.
But this is,
I mean, there are physical limitations to these things, aren't there? That's
Nick,
not going to solve those problems.
No, but Nick, this is, I'm talking about if it belonged to the band and the band are used to using it, so they've got their own level. They can kind of create their own sound anywhere.
Yeah, but the guy with the guitar rig's always going to turn it up as soon as you get on stage. Whether you've practiced that a million times with him turned up to 7, he always turns up to 10. Because I'm the guitarist, and I know I always turn up to 10 when nobody's looking. Because I want to be the loudest, so the girls look at me more. I think one of the strengths actually was the feedback busting thing. The fact that it can kill feedback on every
that
channel.
was actually quite impressive. I did a walkthrough of that. I don't know if I might be able to find it.
It worked, did it?
It did work. It's got 12 bands of feedback elimination. In fact, it sounded lovely. I put it on the ribbon, and the ribbon's got such a wide frequency response. It was sort of it was sort of harmonically lovely, and I put it into some reverb, and it all sounded really nice. Just crank it up and up and up, and it pulls it down. I mean, it doesn't solve it completely, but it's a very... I mean, the idea, basically, I think the thing that sort of missed, and I perhaps missed it initially, I mean, I think I got it in the review, but what I was struggling for ages, thinking, what the hell's this for? You know, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. But the idea that you could just kind of auto trim track, so you put everybody in, and it automatically just monitors it so that nothing clips ever. You know, that's a cool idea. There's feedback suppression. Yes, that's also cool. It can also, there's various dynamic EQ plugins, whatever. The things that are limiting about it is, as with any piece of advanced technology, you go, yeah, that's great. Can I just, because, you know, I've got this fantastic vocal sound, but what I need to do is put one of these DSP modules in. All the DSP module gang and chains are fixed. So if you choose the wrong one in the first place and get a great sound and think, right, that's brilliant, now I just need to bring in a gate or whatever it may be, tough. You've got to recall an entire new strip.
But that's probably software. That could probably be fixed in software.
That's not a good
similar
thing
to
at
your
all.
mute thing, I guess.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it could be.
Your other thing that's going to happen is that you're going to buy this and then you're going to set it up beautifully in your little club, and then you're going to invite Tara Bush to come and sing there, and she's going to turn up with a microphone and a string of effects pedals and different routings and things that she needs to plug in to make her sound. And Tara Bush isn't the only person that does that. I mean, there's that violinist whose name escapes me at the moment, who also does everything through strings of guitar effects pedals and stuff. And suddenly all of that DSP and stuff is going to become meaningless as soon as somebody has something that's even slightly left field or slightly different.
It's all about the preamps. For me, the whole thing, if the preamps are good, then it's a no-brainer.
The preamps do sound quite good, yeah. I wouldn't...
If they're as good as the Line 6 UX2, which is basically a 60 or 70 quid box, which I used to have, they sound brilliant. And I tested them on that self-EQing looping thing to see how flat they were, and they're pretty much flat as well.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's an I suppose it really does raise a question: is how far, you know, because basically we're all pretty pedestrian and conservative, you know, even though, you know, we like to adopt new technology and things. As a whole, musicians as a whole generally like to stick with what they know. And so it's a very brave move, isn't it? I mean, and I just wonder how far you can go at a time with something like this.
He did say without further ado in the video, and I don't think that's ever a good thing.
Oh, okay.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to, you know, a lot of people might just be like, "Ooh, that is just a step too far." But I don't know. I just get so excited about stuff like that. You see, I think that
I got excited too.
Brave.
It's nearly $2,000 for 20 channels.
Well, the thing is, if it doesn't work, it will all be stacked up in neat little piles in Turnkey. If Turnkey doesn't exist.
What about this, though, Nick? As a comparison, though,
for
just in terms of
or something, won't it?
In terms of a value comparison, if you look at like maybe Universal Audio Apollo, the basic model is probably comparable in price, I think.
Yeah.
And there we got 4 preamps, and what's it? Another 4 line-ins, or four preamps or 8 line-ins. I think it's got ADAT on there as well.
Yeah.
And it's got the UAD processing, which I know it's really good, but then again, you only get like a smattering of plugins at that.
That's an interesting point. It's probably similarly powered. I mean, yeah. So yes, I take your point, but I suppose that's not necessarily geared up for that. But yeah, no, that's an interesting comparison.
I'm imagining this though, Nick, you see, and I think that, for me, like the live thing is one thing, but if you had one of them installed in a rehearsal studio, wow, how amazing it would be, for when you're rehearsing. Amazing. So,
you're not a rehearsal studio, you're also a recording studio at that point.
But the fact is,
bring an SD card.
SD card, amazing that is,
That's
isn't it?
a really interesting idea. Yeah, that is an interesting idea.
Amazing. You go to a rehearsal and you can come away with a multi-track. Amazing. I tell you what.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I take your point. I stand correct. That is something that I hadn't thought of. That is a very interesting idea, actually. Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to have an enormous amount of skill as a sound engineer to make it sound good, because you'd just be dragging those little people onto your sound stage.
Well, I mean, and the point is, if you go and rehearse a couple of times first, and you get your sound set up in the first place, then all you do is when you're ready, you stick your SD card in and go, right, recall your preset.
Yeah.
It's
Lovely.
a far cry from the ribbon mic of the 1930s, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's true. Gosh, this topic has lasted longer than I anticipated, actually. I suppose
it could go on.
It could go on, but it's a very interesting paradigm. I mean, we've got some more sort of groundbreaking paradigms as well, so I suppose to come later. But maybe now this is a good time to do our customary sponsorship slot. This is from Yamaha, Yamaha's World of Apps, who are basically... like to tell you about the applications that they have. I mean, there are a whole bunch of music-related applications, over 20 at the time of this ad, and considerably more since. There's things for performance and playing. There's arpeggiators, MIDI output. This is the performance play. There's also a synth app as well, which has synth sounds in it too. There's performance and play faders, XY pad to connect to any MIDI instrument. So you've got even more ways of gesture control and just giving yourself this kind of configurable MIDI control. There's edit and control for voice edit, which will work with your Motif, XF, Mox, S90X, S70XS, Motif XS and Rack XS, so you get access to all the various performance and voice edit parameters, lots of ways, EQs and stuff, so you've got much more visual control than perhaps just the small LCD screen. Again, performance edit allows you to set up the different performances if you're sequencing or you're running multiple lines or pads or whatever, XY control of that as well. And the setlist organizer, which is another great MIDI based application, allows you to set up lots of different songs, program changes and manage it all from one place with maybe notes and photographs. Record, cloud audio recorder, lots and lots of different applications from Yamaha. The best way really to check them out is just go to the iTunes store and search for Yamaha apps. If you want to find out more, go to uk.yamaha.com. And once again, we thank Yamaha for the continued sponsorship of the show. Right, what's next? The next one in the list is new synth from Elektron. This is kind of spicy. Let's play it. They've been teasing us with this for a while, and I must admit, I called it as soon as I heard it, which is basically it's going to be an analog synth in that same box, which is what we're seeing here. It does look nice. It's got the same sort of octa-track design, the sort of mono machine drum kind of setup sequencer, but with 4 analog voices. I think there's 2 oscillators per voice plus a noise source, a couple of filters per voice, envelopes, and all sorts of parameter sort of tweaking or what have you. And these are all sounds made by it. It's caused that we've had loads and loads of comments on this. You could sort of think of it like a Korg mono poly, but without the poly. It doesn't seem to have a poly mode, which seems a little bit. I'm sure that's fixable in software, or at least I hope it is. Individual voice outs, built-in effects, video looks nice and sleek. All of those things. And it's a new synth, which has got to be a good thing. It's $11.49 dollars or euros. Which seems, it's the kind of price. One thing that's sort of come up as a couple of points in this is if you're going to make an analog synth, why not have a load of analog controls? It seems a little bit of a strange thing. I don't know, Gaz, do you like Elektron stuff? Have you been exposed to it? It takes a bit of getting used to their way of working.
I haven't actually, no. But I mean, the trailer for this, that was quite a remarkable trailer.
Hector.
Yeah, like a kind of full-on Hollywood.
Yeah, it's like, what's this about? Is this about feeding somebody's habit for a Canon 5D and a bit of cinematography, or is it about a new synth? I think I know which.
Yeah, but then if you listen, was the whole soundtrack for that done on it then?
I believe that was the kind of idea. I mean, that's the only link that you could have, because there's nothing else about it that was to do with the synth. But yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, it definitely sounds good, doesn't it? Midi in the chat room says if it was an iPad app, it would be $11.99, and in some ways it does, doesn't it? Those things are a bit like apps, but in that it's it's got its limitations, but then that's quite nice as well. But it sounds good. It definitely sounds good. But
I remember we bought the machine drum when I worked on the first couple of Goldfrapp albums. We bought machine drum, which I did use quite a lot through a Sherman filter bank, because it's got some great and interesting drum sounds. The mono machine was another one that was bought because which was six voices, but you could play that in poly mode as well, and various different voice splits. And the thing about that was we really liked the idea of it, but actually it didn't get used hardly at all, because it was a little bit abstract in the way that you would program it and what have you. So it just didn't immediately spring to hands. Oh, I can do that with this. It was, and I'm just a bit worried that this will have the same sort of vibe. I don't know. Mark, have you used any Electron stuff?
No. It looked a bit JL Cooper Fader Master.
Oh yeah, no, I see where you're coming from.
It didn't look like. I mean. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think synthesizers should have like lots and lots of knobs all over them, so that you can just grab things randomly and sort of experiment. And it didn't look like it had enough of that. It looked like you'd got to get into the sort of the digital aspect of it and assign things to things. It looked like one of those kind of analog synths. And I'm not sure I like those as much, really.
This has got, if I just show you, this is sort of
that
front
little
panel.
window there.
Well, that's the display. There's also there are 8 A through J controllers, and if I remember correctly, the way that the machine thing works, when you call up a machine, they will access parameters for whatever page, so you can get to 8 parameters immediately. And so, and I think they're pre-assigned, although I'm sure you can change them as well. HT in the chat room says that the Octatrack isn't the easiest thing to get the best out of, and if that's the testament to that, is they've issued loads and loads of videos of this is how you do this. And in fact, they did pitch, would you like to review it? And I said, look, to be honest, I haven't got enough time to learn a completely new system to evaluate it properly. I'm sorry, I just can't. And I felt a little bit guilty about it, because that's kind of what I do. But it would take me weeks to get my head around it, and that's the thing.
I mean, you need to know what things are and where they are straight away, and that's when you get like something like an ARP 2600. You look at the front face of it, and the entire thing is immediately self-explanatory, and you don't need to sit there going like, oh, what's this knob going to do when I press this button? You don't have to do that at all. You just know the frequencies here, the cutoffs here, the noises here, the oscillators here, the sub is here, and so on. And you're constrained by those things, but you can then go on to make quite a broad palette of sounds with what's essentially quite a simple system.
You see,
as soon as you make the system more complicated, it doesn't mean that you can make more sounds with it, does it? It sometimes slows down the whole process.
Yeah, but this is geared around performance as well. A lot of their stuff is very much geared around the performance. Yeah, Gaz, go ahead.
I think what Mark's saying is really interesting, and I love the Roland Gaia for that reason. I know it's not the greatest synth engine sound-wise, although I do like the sound. You can get loads of great sounds out of it. But the workflow on that, it's got no display on it. But the reason, all I was going to mention, this is what I'd like to see more of. You can just instantly just press and get the initial sound just straight away. You can just hold down 2 buttons and it just goes to the initial sound, which is great. But also there's another button you can press and it goes to manual mode, where the sound suddenly is exactly the same as what all of the controls are on it.
Right. So
right.
So the reason why I want.
Oh, sorry.
Well, all it was is that I use that more than I use any other synth, any virtual synth or anything for the reason that you're saying there.
Just because you got an immediate connection, you got
straight away. And I'd like to see more. And I'd love to see.
Oh, sorry.
I want the Gaia with an analog engine. Wow.
Well,
Come
I mean,
on,
interestingly, I
that's
mean,
the
the thing that I'm really excited about getting in for review as soon as possible, I've been pestering the UK distributor for weeks and weeks, is the Studio Logic Sledge. You know, that's what I want to get my hands on, because that's for the same reason, exactly the same paradigm. But yeah.
Same paradigm. Yep.
Redwalks was
yeah.
saying in the chat room that the display tells you on this what it's doing, but those displays never tell you what knob you've turned till after you've turned it. And the important thing is that when the knobs are labeled, you know what it's going to do before you touch the knob. I mean, obviously, if you've owned it for a really long time and you've learned what all those things are and you use it day in, day out, then that makes sense, I think. But then if it's going to be that, then it has to sound way, way better than anything else that's analog out there. In other words, it has to absolutely capture me on sound before I go anywhere near it. And then why? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
That's an interesting point, and I think it's the true, perhaps, of all of the Electron stuff. It requires an investment in time, you know, and that's why possibly Electron users are very evangelistic and very kind of passionate about their instruments, because they've invested the time to kind of get the most out of it, and they're very deep. So I mean, you get it works two ways. You know, yes, I mean the Gaia is immediate, but it's not terribly deep, really. I mean, it's about as deep as it can be. Considering the voice architecture, whereas I suspect possibly with this there's more potential for routing and modulation and what have you. I mean, I am guessing.
Okay, but then if there's more potential for routing, modulation, and sound, why did they do that demo they've just done, which makes it sound like every other analog synth on the planet? If you can get things and modulate things with things that nobody's ever modulated anything with ever before, and it makes the sound of like alien spaceships from 2015, I want to hear it. I don't want it. I don't want to wait to do that myself. I want at least somebody to outline, Mark, this thing's going to do this and you can't do this on any other synth. Okay, great. I want to buy one. Thank you. It's, you know,
it's a tough challenge, actually, because people want to hear the now sounds, the contemporary stuff, and the stuff that, well, yes, but to capture the attention, you know, the kids want to make the sound of now, so they want to know that if they're buying something like that, it will do that, but presumably it'll also do the other stuff. You know, I mean, I guess, you know, Dave Smith Instruments is being kind of cited in a lot of instances, but I think to be honest, the thing about the Dave Smith, particularly the one which has got, you know, which does have like the Mofo, which has dedicated knobs on it rather than parameter access, there is a familiar topography to it, you know, and that's the thing.
Yeah, but that's exactly the same. I mean, somebody sent me an email the other day and asked me if I wanted to buy a TB303 emulator, brand new analog synth that emulates a TB303, and I thought, oh god, it's just going to be another one of those XOX box things, and do I want to buy this or don't I want to buy this? And I scrolled down and there's a picture of this thing and it looks identical to a TB303, and I thought, hang on a minute, I know that layout intimately, I know where everything is, and I actually, if I was going to buy a TB303 emulator, why not buy one that actually in a silver box has the same knobs as a 303, has everything that a MIDI 303 would have, and I'm going to be instantly familiar with that, and I'm going to know kind of, you know, what I can get out of it, and then if I get other things out of it, it will be because I've stretched my imagination. So
that's an interesting point. Yeah.
I want familiarity from a synthesizer, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
This thing here, the Dave Smith Mofo, you know, it's a great sounding monosynth. I don't think anyone would.
It's just not a scintillating experience. It's all right. That's not in your. That's Mark's cat, I think.
It's Mark's cat.
Yeah, sorry.
But the Mofo, in a way, you see, is a great example of this one, of that convoluted process. You got a computer editor, but it's all right. It's not that great.
Well, as we know, hardware, you know, it does make a lot of sense. Actually, I just wanted to hold this up because I finally got this going. This is my Raspberry Pi.
Hooray!
It's finally working.
Great!
And what's really cool, I got it connected to this. This is like a laptop power supply type power cell which outputs all different voltages, and it's running off that.
Wow.
And what I've done, I wanted to explain. If you were watching in the chat room before the show started, you're probably a bit sick of me going on about it. But so the idea is this: it just works really nicely. So I put this in this little case. So it's powered up. It's got an Ethernet cable. I put a thumb drive in it, and the idea is with these, what I want to do is make a couple of these, and when we're at trade shows or whatever, I can put a load of videos on this thumb drive, plug it in, then there'll be a command line script that just goes, oh yeah, here's a load of videos. I'll just upload them to see if they're already online, and if they're not, I'll start uploading them. So I'll just leave it on connected to a network cable, and that's just one use. I mean, there are synthesizers and what have you for it, but I just wanted to let everybody know I did get it working, because it was something that actually caused me quite a lot of consternation. In fact, I emailed the vendor saying I can't get it working, it must be broken, and then realised that it was me. It's the thing that you've got to watch out for is when you put the SD card in and you have to format it, you've got to change the name of it, and I missed that part, so I was writing the disk image over and over again to this card without renaming it properly, and once you've renamed it, bang, you're all good to go.
Which distro did you use?
Raspberry, just the one that comes with it.
Right.
Regular one.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Raspberry Pi numerous times now, so I still think it's such an exciting tool. And
yeah, it could be. I mean, I'm not sure about real-time instruments and whatever, because I don't think it's going to sound all that good. But it just worked, and that was the thing that was interesting.
It can do some pretty good number crunching. I think it.
Yeah.
I think it's.
Oh look, I'm going to show you. In fact, this is it running. For those of you who are into this kind of thing, it's here. It is. There. That's it right there. If I type top into that, it'll show the processes. It's going to be pretty small, but there you go. So it's running. It's using hardly much. Well, it's not doing anything, so it's not going to do much. But anyway, that's not of great interest to most people.
Yeah, but I think as a sampler, I think that's what I'd like to see them as.
Sorry, people are wondering how we got here. You're quite right. I hijacked that rather, but just because I was so delighted that I actually managed to get the bloody thing working, that I was feeling all kind of righteous about it. Speaking of sort of new paradigms, there are another couple of things. I think we've got time for the quick look at this new production system from Yamaha and then we can do Mark's Tinnitus.
What?
Hey, let me press go on that. What's that? Vid 3. Here it comes. Right. There it goes. This is Nuage, or New Age, perhaps it could be called. This is a professional system solution for audio post-production. It's kind of high-end stuff, but it's a new control surface combined between Yamaha and Steinberg. And what's really, really nice about this, there's a view which comes up shortly, which shows, as in record, this is very cool. They've got this kind of way of showing the audio waveform going past. There we go. It's sort of scrolling up the screen. I don't know, you can't see it there now. I'm hoping it's going to come in shortly, because I thought that was quite thrilling. There's some lovely metering. It does look like a very beautiful thing. Let me see, it's probably coming along a set. Maybe I can scroll forward and we can. Yeah, there we go. There's the waveforms all going past. So that's stuff either playback or record, which I really like the look of that. That's a really nifty idea. Yeah. And something that could be stolen by somebody else.
We're going to see that a lot.
Sharpish. But it just looks like this is wow. It's pretty, high-end stuff. But what's quite interesting is if we go over there's the Yamaha website, and they've got all sorts of components to this. So it's not only the control surface, it's the software. There's also hardware, audio interfaces, IOs, and flexible modular architecture plus network, what have you. It does look quite interesting. It's not going to be cheap. I mean, I think the base price for this thing starting at $18,000. So, it's a bit of a different world, but I'm just quite interested to see that Yamaha entering that world. It's kind of quite... apparently FL Studio has the scrolly waveforms in its mixer, for your information, says Sonic 3054 in the chat room. Oh, I like the sound of that. That's going to be...
I was just going to say, it actually looks physically, in terms of the colours they've used on the desk and everything, not dissimilar to FL Studio at all, actually. Like the blacks I mean, if that color in the video is an accurate representation of the physical color of the hardware, then those slightly grayed, bluey, grayy blacks are the.
Wow, it is very much a high-end stuff. In fact, HT in the chat room says the price of a BMW S1000R. He'd rather have the motorbike. I'm guessing, Mark, you might be feeling the same kind of affinity with the bike rather than the desk. But yeah, I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it's whether or not I need that to make music, and personally, I don't. And if I was recording a band, I would probably go. I hate to say it because they annoy the living daylights out of me, but I would go with DigiDesign's Pro Tools because it's pretty much an industry standard, and it would be hard not to go with it if you were recording a band. But
yeah, well, that's true. I mean, maybe.
So this is those little things going up there.
Yeah, that does look really cool, doesn't it?
I mean,
we're easily pleased.
Is it locked in with Nuendo, or is it its own?
That's a very good question.
Software.
I don't have that information immediately to hand. Let me have a look. It's Nuage IO. It's Nuendo 6. Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah.
With an all-new mixer window, it's got so it's a Nuendo thing. So that's that's kind of geared around post, isn't it? And
this is what it is exactly. That's what I was just figuring out. So that particular world of post, and there is a real Nuendo. Nuendo is big in that world. So I think there's a definite. They know they've got a market for it.
Or its competitors are going to be like Calrec, the Calrec.
Well, and Digi.
Desks.
Digi, yeah, definitely Digi. But I mean, that's the thing I found in that world.
Calrec desks.
There's a real.
I've got the horrible colours in them, like teal and magenta.
Oh, those words! It's just saying those words is doing something. In fact, I think teal.
And yellow.
There's a teal Furby.
Just
I just picked one up from the post office today for a Christmas present. So I hope my daughter doesn't listen to this podcast, which I'm pretty sure she won't be.
No, probably not.
That's safe to say. I'm just kind of funky
to them from time to time, though, which is a little disconcerting. But she's 17, so
I have to say, Nick. Recently, I've just gone back and done a project in Cubase, which I haven't worked with. I've used Cubase for such a long time, big since early '90s, and I pretty much abandoned it a few years ago because of a few things, largely in protest to the dongle. I think I've talked about this before.
Yeah, well, they did kind of had a black phase. I mean, it looks to me now like Cubase at Steinberg are really, you can see there's a happening kind of vibrant development team on it. There are things happening in, there's Cubase 7, which has just come out. It's got lots of interesting features. I mean, there's some, there's the chord stuff. I mean, it's all becoming. What's interesting about this is there seems to be this kind of ebb and flow between who's putting resources into DAWs and who's kind of cutting edge. And Cubase seem to be on a bit of a roll at the moment with the Cubase 7, which is coming out imminently.
Well, how many iterations of Cubase have been out since Logic has been on version 9?
Yeah. Well, I was looking at this actually, and this is the one thing that when we this was sort of another topic, but it kind of molds into it. The fact that we got Cubase 7 coming out. It hasn't been long since Cubase 6 was out, really. Probably a year, possibly, maybe a bit longer. And I was just thinking, what's happened to Logic? And I know so many people who opted for Logic and are now kind of just orphaned. In fact, I looked actually Logic Pro. If I get it here, I checked on the App Store. And it's up to version 9.18, and this update addresses all overall stability and performance issues, including fixes an issue that caused AirPlay, resolved performance. There's just no new.
I upgraded from Logic Pro 8 to Logic Pro 9, and I have to say that it really wasn't very much in it. In terms of I didn't get anything particularly.
Just a difference, just an unfamiliar screen set, but
because they've stayed put. Things have moved on.
Massive.
Studio One is a good example, and one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Reaper is because Reaper can just it can either lead or it can follow very quickly. For instance, dropping VSTs onto a clip. When you start work like that, when you get used to using VSTs in that manner, then going to anything that hasn't got that seems like a backward step. It's like one of those kind of things that everything needs to do. Once someone started doing it, they all need to do it. If they don't, I know it does.
So you can just run DSP on a clip. You can just You told me to try it, and I
you can
didn't
just
get
drag.
that far.
You can just drag a plug-in, and you can just drop it on a clip.
There are other ones that will
Studio
do.
One, yeah, Studio One does it. You see.
And so does sound. Is it Soundscape?
So, sorry, Samplitude.
Samplitude.
I think, was the first to do that, and I think they did it years and years ago, and it was one of their big one of their special things.
Yeah, no, great idea.
But like it's taken Pro Tools to version 10 to come up, to get on board with clip gain. That's something that Nuendo had from version 1, and it's one of these things. Certain things, once you get into using them, if they don't have it, it's really difficult to sort of, to go back to. And for me, Logic is just this creaky, old, annoying, bloated.
I must admit, I just do not boot it anymore.
Text.
I just won't boot anymore. And it's a
I'm
shame because I still.
happy with it. I just use it, but I'm just use it for throwing guitar lines down and then drop, drum beats in and drag things around and make a little arrangement, and bosh, I'm done.
Yeah, well, I think that's
I'm
fine.
aiming to make my music simpler and simpler. So
Ableton Live is what I use for that kind of purpose, and it's so many steps less convoluted than Logic, and I think So I mean, sorry, I do rant on against Logic, and I mean Logic does have some really good functions, but it's just very complex, and it takes a lot of effort to learn how to use it.
Yeah, I suppose again, I evangelized, and the people who did take the effort.
Well, maybe that's where my investment lies, in the fact that I have taken a lot of effort to learn how to use. I mean, I find it much easier to route things in Logic and set up virtual mixers in Logic and route things around and all that sort of stuff. And the MIDI stuff I find really easy to route around in there, but only because I've been using Logic since version 1, so when it came out, I read the manual cover to cover and learned how the environment works, and that seems to be most people's problem. They just don't get what the environment's about and how easy it is to chain stuff together and do all that MIDI processing stuff, and that doesn't exist in a lot of other things in the way that it exists in Logic. And
well, yes, that's true. And but
without that,
interested. People are always asking about Bitwig in the studio, because that will have all of this transformational stuff. And from what I've seen of the beta, it looked great. But I just want to stress the time. The killer question with that was, have you started the optimization process? And the answer then was no. And optimization, you build this massively inefficient, huge, fully featured thing, and then Bitwig, people then have to turn it into a commercially viable thing that will run on a variety of platforms, and won't get in, needs to, and will be optimized. And the optimization is an extremely, as most software developers will tell you, if Dave was here, he would say the optimization phase of any project is the most painful and can have the most wide-reaching effects on the final result of anything. So that's kind of where they are.
This is one of the things that Reaper has always kind of been very good at. They optimize it incredibly quickly, and they can respond to things incredibly quickly.
Well, I suppose once they've built the sort of core engine, that's optimized, then that's fine. It's just
that's because it's almost open source as well, and they've got an infinite team of people working on various different aspects of it, haven't they? It's not like they've got a small software development team. They've got like loads of people working, haven't they?
Well, they've got a very enthusiastic, volunteer sort of fans really in the some Synth Beast is asking if I'm a big time Ableton Live user. I am, but I'm also big Reaper fan as well. But I think in my case I use different software for different things. I've got Cubase. And what I was saying, while we kind of went way off track, and I was saying about Cubase that I'd done a project on Cubase recently, and it was Cubase version 6.5. And I have to say that the visuals of 6.5 is very nice. It's very clear. It's very bright. It's very crisp. It's really, and I found it like a pleasing place to work. And you go back
because
to
they've copied FL Studio, though.
It might be, but go back to older ones, and there's kind of different shades. I know you can customize these things, but
I think they've changed all of that.
Oh, they've changed it, have they?
I think they've changed, but it looks like it's quite clear. They've changed the mixer window. They've changed a number of things here. They've got channel strips. They've got all sorts of stuff going. I mean, there's a big list of what they've done right here, but it does look very complete to in a lot of ways. I've not used Cubase since it was on the Atari. So I mean, that's an enormous admission of that's many years.
Using it on the PC about version 3.7 or something. But that was only because Logic went through this terrible phase of not being able to communicate with the hardware properly, and I could only record 3 tracks. But I guess that's because Apple went through a phase of switching processors, and
maybe
everything went backwards for a while, didn't it? So
yeah,
I just
when
I do have a Steinberg Cubase dongle somewhere.
When will they just give up on the blimmin' dongle though? You know, it's such.
I think I'm gonna pull things together here a little bit before we get too far off track with the dongle side of things. There is another topic, and I think it's only fair that I let Mark perhaps introduce this one. I mean, this is your Tinnitus. Well, I'll play your initial thing. I mean, basically, Mark, you discovered that you had certain frequencies of tinnitus, right?
I have, yeah.
You have, right. Well, I'm going to try and play this. Let me see. This probably won't work on Sky, but what's interesting, that solid waveform there, you've put very high levels of the 2 frequencies that are troubling you in your ears, and I played it, and I was it was really interesting how it affects you. With me, I heard it.
I have to do it with headphones on.
Yeah, I've got headphones on. I'm going to play it now. See what happens.
So as a result,
I can hear it really loudly straight away.
And of working as a professional musician and a professional sound engineer, I have hearing loss.
Ooh.
And while that's not in a significant area when it comes to listening to speech, I don't have any problems in that area. Or to hearing the overall balance of instruments in a mix, or to hearing the overall balance of sounds, and I'm very able to pick out individual sounds in a space, and I can quite often hear things other people don't hear. But at nearly 50 years old, what's happened is the high frequencies have started to tail off. But the most significant part of the hearing damage or hearing loss is that I experience very loud tinnitus. So
I'm gonna have to. That's making me feel really uncomfortable. Actually, that.
Well, surprise. I can sort of hear, but because I've got this headset here, and I've got that pressed to my ear, I couldn't hear it. And then when I took it off, I could hear it. If I listen with headphones on and I listen to that recording, if I put the headphones on one way round, I can hear it, and if I put them on the other way round, I can't hear it. It's ever so strange.
So you've got slightly different tinnitus in each ear, right?
Yeah. And the doctor said that the reason why I'm hearing tinnitus is because, and he seemed surprised that I understood this, but inside your brain tries to compensate for quiet things by compressing them and turning them up. So what's basically happened is that those 2 frequencies, and they're different, one frequency in each ear has died completely. So my ability to hear those frequencies is gone. And it's not a problem with my eardrum. My eardrum's in perfect condition. It's not a problem with any dirt or anything in my ear canal. It's actually that thing behind the eardrum, I think it's called the cochlea.
Yeah.
Just has lost the ability to hear that frequency completely. And I will never hear that again in my life. But because my brain thinks, hang on, I should be hearing that, it takes that frequency and it turns it up. So I've permanently got that whistle at about 12K in my hearing. So when I go to sleep at night, when I'm lying in bed in silence, I'm just hearing whee!
Really loud. Oh, that's interesting.
And then in my left ear, I seem to have lost the ability to hear really high frequencies in my left ear over a certain frequency, but it is strange in that when I when I try to match the level of those to the levels that I was hearing in my head, when I do it one way round, I can't hear it at all, and when I do it the other way, because I can't get it any louder than the actual tinnitus, but when I do it the other way round, I can actually hear them and go, oh Jesus, that's actually really loud. So
Yeah, well,
it's kind of weird.
the thing I found while listening to that was that I heard it really loudly for a moment, and then it just dies back, and your brain
brain
masks it.
down again, yeah.
So it works in reverse, effectively. It applies an incredibly tight notch filter to that particular frequency. I'm aware of a really high pressure level, and that's the thing I find with that I don't like about the noise cancelling headphones, those sort of things, because the overall volume of stuff going into your ears is enormous to compensate from the outside. Although you're not aware of it. I'm aware of this kind of pushing against the eardrums, and I find that I don't like them at all for that very reason. And yeah.
It's the same with those teenager deterrents as well, because my son has a terrible time without Aldi. Outside Aldi, they've got these two things called Mosquito hanging on the wall out there. And they're really bloody loud, because I tried recording it, slowed it down an octave, and then I'm like, wow, hang on a minute, that is really like scary loud, like 130 dB or something. And he stands there going, ow, ow, ow. And I'm like going, what? And I can't hear it, but I can feel it.
Oh, yeah, that's awful. I don't know whether they have this in the States, but what they do is they basically put these kind of really loud, high frequency emitting sort of transducers or whatever they are, and they power this stuff out in the vicinity of shopping malls and places where teenagers hang about. And the thinking being that if you're over, I don't know, 21 or something, your hearing is deteriorated enough to shelve off that incredibly painfully loud amount of frequency. But it seems like such a massively flawed and inhuman thing to do. It's bizarre.
There's a playground. There's a football field just up the road from here. It belongs to a school. And they don't want people using it at night, so they've put these things. They put these big fences up, and then there's these things pointing, and it looks like stuff from a prison camp or something. These kind of big poles and these big devices, and they got sensors. So if anyone goes in there, then it starts, this frequency just to kind of. But I'm kind of thinking, what's going on? This is a playing field. It's a playing field. If kids want to get in there and play, let them.
It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if there'll ever be. This is going a little bit sort of tangentially, but I wonder if we're going to end in a situation where, living it or being exposed to this. If you work in one of those places, and you're exposed to this stuff, and your hearing gets affected. I mean,
I should finish with that story. They're not there anymore. My friend Chris Powell, who lives reasonably near there. He can see the football field from his house, but he's up a hill. It was really, he could hear it. He could open his window and he could hear it from his house. And he's 51.
Wow.
So he wrote letters and some other people complained, and they've turned them off. So that's kind of cool.
Good. Don't like that sort of thing. That seems wrong.
Cool.
In terms of, they did an audiogram as well, going back to my ears. So in terms of my audiogram, my hearing's really, really good. I don't have any significant hearing loss. I just have this whistle. And it's just... So, I guess it doesn't affect my ability to mix anything that doesn't have that one specific frequency in it. And it's slightly annoying when I go to sleep. And I've always worn ear plugs and ear muffs and really protected my hearing. So it's just, I just wonder about everyone else in the music industry and how they are or where they're at.
We're all screwed. What? Yeah, that's why I don't have cymbals in any of my mixes. I can't be trusted with them.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
I just thought of an idea. Genetically modified little worms that you put in your ear. They go down and they live on earwax. So they eat all the earwax and they lay little eggs, and the little eggs then act as kind of little sound
filters.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
I don't have any earwax, though. That's the first thing he said to me, because I was thinking I'm going to go to an audiologist. I'm going to go in there. He's going to say, "Oh, Mr. Tywharton, or Mr. Tinley, your ears are completely blocked up with earwax. If we just clean this all out, you'll be able to hear perfectly." And he looked in my ears and he said, I've had ear infections in the past. So he said, well, if you had an ear infection in the past, I'm pleased to tell you that it's healed perfectly. There's no scarring on the eardrum. Your eardrums are perfectly clean. There's nothing going on in there that could be causing this problem. And I was like, damn, because if, that could have been the solution. At the moment, I'm taking something called ginkgo biloba, which is like an African
It's a tree,
herb,
isn't it?
a bit like, you know, it's like doing masses of cocaine for breakfast.
It's supposed to aid your memory, actually. It's supposed to be good for thinking.
It's supposed to be good for ADHD, and I have been diagnosed with ADHD in the past, and I have to say it isn't working for me. So mine's still all over the place. But.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that you have tinnitus, but the fact that it's not affecting too much, but it's worth, you know, I mean, the thing is it really is worth protecting you. I mean, particularly with things like in-ear buds and all this kind of thing, it's very easy to overexpose yourself to it. I mean, I still kind of go past people and hear this music blasting out of their ears and just think, oh man, just be careful, mate.
You know, when I did the opera in Paris, and we had like we had these really state-of-the-art in-ear monitors fitted, and they could carry out little tests on your ears to kind of, you know, they measure the hairs and they can work out the frequency response of your ears. So these are they're brilliant. They're called Westone. But anyway, the fit was so good, and the drivers were so good. You only needed like about a third or maybe half would be fine. It'd be brilliant. And I was kind of thinking, wow, you know, so if I'd love to have some of them and just wear them all the time, you know, because they protect your ears
instead of real life.
Instead of real life. But you know, when we go out for a little walk, you know, and by a road or whatever, and Westone, cool.
Yeah, see, these my in-ear monitors are Westone, and I've got loads of little different little bungs that you can stick in the side of them to change the bass response and everything. Did you have those?
No, these ones though, and I didn't get to keep them. They're over £1,000. They're over £1,000 a set, and not including getting your ears done as well. And there's five drivers in them. 5 drivers.
Oh no, mine have only got 2 drivers in. Mine are probably about 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually. HT in the chat room says he's got a Westone guitar. Is it the same company? Because I remember Westone. We had a Westone bass.
No. Yeah,
it's Westone Laboratories in.
Is it Belgium? Is it or?
Oh, I don't know.
They're in Europe.
You see them in you see them in trade shows. They come and sort of say, "Yeah, come and see how crap your headphones are."
I have to say, not only are they the best sounding headphones I've ever heard. It was like the best sounding playback I've ever heard. You know, of anything.
Really?
Yeah, amazing.
They are good.
So,
I mean, I got mine because Duran decided they were going to do everything without monitors. And they said, we're going to scrap all of the monitors from the show, and then the only people that need to be able to hear it is front of house and the guy doing the monitors. And I went, no, that's not going to work, because if I'm running your backing tracks, I need to be able to hear what you guys are doing, because I can't stand at the back of the stage and just take hand signals. I'm going to have to hear what's going on. So I persuaded them that I needed to be fitted with the ear molds, and to have ear. You need to try this trick, guys, next time you're working with someone that's doing this. So if I can't hear it, I'm not going to be able to work with you. And basically I got mine that way, which was rather nice, actually. So I've no idea how much they cost, but they are very good.
Well, I think in my case, they're keeping it all together just in case there's future in the show. So fingers crossed.
Oh, yeah. Well, that'd be nice.
Just one thing on there, just about the in-ear thing. That was a good experience for me doing that show, because like Mark Almond, for instance, he hated it. And in the end, we had to sort of put a speaker on stage just for him, because he wouldn't, he just really,
it's different for singers though, isn't it? Because you get a mechanical feedback thing, which is a bit odd.
And he just found it very disconcerting, and he really, really didn't like it one bit. Now, I know other people who are singers absolutely swear by it, absolutely love it. So just thought it was quite interesting, really. But we had a couple of people doing the headphone monitor mixes, and, you know, it's these things, you know, if they put the wrong signal in, that job becomes, the level of responsibility just shoots up, because, you know, you can really do something hundreds of signals going on, and, you know, you've got, and there's a lot of people on in-ears as well in that show, so there was a lot of signals flying around. So it was interesting, and it wasn't without problems, but I think ultimately I thought it was
It's the way to
amazing.
go. As he ahead in the chat room says, we'll soon have an optical jack in our skull and don't need airwaves to hear.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, we'd probably get to the point where there's like a little patch, a transducer patch, like a kicker. that
I'm
could just
sure
sort
I
of-
read somewhere. I'm sure I read somewhere in New Scientist that they discovered that there's a light channel in the ear, and that something doesn't connect up in the ear, and that they've discovered that how the sound gets from one part of the ear to the brain is through like a little tiny short light channel. And I thought that was quite interesting, because that means you could just like cut the ear off and put one of those optical cables straight in.
Why ever not? Maybe I could get an adapter for my optical port on the Mac and just go straight in.
You could become the Van Gogh of
I don't like the
sonic
sound of that.
statism.
I don't like the sound of that. That sounds really grim. But well, after that sort of a bit of rambling, I think it's probably time to say goodbye. I know I've got to get back home. It's been raining vigorously here all day, and I've got to go and I've got to cover things up a little bit. As I said in the pre-show, if I go to there's my other camera, which is on a Pantene Zip. There it is. That's not a sick bowl.
no.
That is actually the bowl for. I think I can zoom in a bit further. Look at that. That's the bowl where the water leaked, and where that bowl was. There was a table with my laptop on it, and it got a bit. It's all right, I think, but I came in and the fan was going rather fast, and it had a few splashes of water on it. So I decided to. I've turned it off and have kept it tipped upside down so that anything can pour out of it. But yeah, I'll leave it off for a little while. Hey, we'll have to see. So, folks, thank you very much for watching. Thank you, everybody in the chat room, for joining us. Once again, I'm sorry we didn't have a live show last week, and we will be back. Normal services resumed. And hopefully I'll have some more interesting, exciting things to say about my Raspberry Pi for the next episode, perhaps. Or perhaps none of you want to care or are interested at all. But I want to say thank you very much to Gaz Williams, songsurgeon.co.uk. I know I've got his Twitter here, at Goldstar as well. Thanks for joining us.
I think everyone who listens should buy a Raspberry Pi, and we should create a huge mesh network. I think that would be amazing. An alternative internet.
Interesting idea, yeah.
That's my ambition now. Is actually to try. And
Hey
create
Nick, can you switch off these
network.
high frequency tones now? You seem to have less than I haven't actually, but I'm sorry about that. I've just damaged everybody's ears. Mark Tinley, also thank you for joining us as well. What? Hey, what? Thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing your Tinnitus with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'll never work as a sound engineer ever again now, but
I'm sure that's not true.
no, I'm sure it's not true.
Anyway, thanks very much. That was Sonic Talk number 292. Thank you very much indeed.